your child will eventually resent you. Permissive kids often struggle dramatically when they encounter bosses, professors, or romantic partners who won't cater to their every whim. Hey, amazing parent, it's Dr. Lindsay here with this week's psychology-based parenting tips. And today we're covering the real risk of permissive parenting. We've all had times when your children have tried whining to get what they want or tried to persuade you to change your mind. Today, I'm exposing the hidden dangers of permissive parenting that loving parents never see coming. And the biggest risk isn't what most people think. It's not that your kids will be spoiled or entitled. The real risk is something much more heartbreaking and often irreversible. The next time your child begs and pleads for you to change your mind about a boundary that you set, you'll think twice after watching this video. Before we dive into these devastating risks, let me be clear. I know you're not trying to hurt your child. You're probably using permissive methods because you want to nurture their creativity, build their confidence, and avoid the strict parenting that you may have experienced as a child. But what if I told you that this approach often creates the exact opposite of what you're hoping for? More about the shocking things that adult children say to their permissive parents in just a minute. But first, let's make sure that we understand what we're really talking about. Here's how to tell if you're a permissive parent and why it feels so loving to so many well-meaning parents. Permissive parenting is the anything goes approach where parents offer lots of love and warmth, but very few rules, boundaries, or expectations. These parents avoid conflict at all costs and rarely say no to their children. Common phrases around permissive parenting include, whatever makes you happy, or I don't want to stifle their creativity, or I just want my child to like me. Rules change based on the child's mood or the parent's energy level, and children make most of their own decisions, even when they lack the maturity to do so safely. This is one of the common parenting styles originally identified by psychologist Diana Baumrind in the 1960s. You might recognize some of these patterns. A 4-year-old chooses their own bedtime because they know their body. An 8-year-old quits activities the moment they become challenging. Or a 15-year-old has no chores because childhood should be fun. These parents aren't lazy. They genuinely believe that unlimited freedom creates confident, creative children. But here's what they don't realize. Children actually crave structure and boundaries, and without them, they feel anxious and lost. So this parenting style, meant to create happy, confident kids, actually sets them up for a lifetime of struggle and disappointment. If you're a parent who hates conflict, wants to be your child's best friend, and believes that kids should be free to express themselves without limits, this video might be hard to watch. Moving on to the first major risk, and this one starts affecting children from toddlerhood. Risk number 1, impaired self-regulation and development of unhealthy habits. This is why permissive kids seem so difficult in structured environments and what's really happening to their developing brains. Children raised in permissive parenting never learn to regulate their emotions, delay gratification, or develop healthy habits because no one teaches them how. A 3-year-old has a daily meltdown when grandma is watching them for a few days because they can't have candy for breakfast and they've never learned the word no. A 7-year-old can't focus in school because they've never had to persist through challenging tasks at home. A 12-year-old stays up until 2 a.m. on devices because no one's ever set screen time limits. Or a 16-year-old fails classes because they've never learned to do things they don't want to do. What looks like a free-spirited child is actually a child whose brain has never developed the neural pathways for self-control. They're not learning to manage difficult emotions. They're learning to avoid them entirely. We have Misty coming to visit us. This creates children who become overwhelmed by normal life challenges that their peers can handle easily. But these developmental issues are just the beginning. Let's talk about what happens to their character next. So let's move on to the second risk, development of entitled and selfish behaviors. Why permissive kids often become the children that other parents and even other kids don't want to be around. When children never hear no and always get their way, they develop a worldview where their needs and wants always come first. Kind of like a cat. These children struggle to share, take turns, and consider others' feelings. A 5-year-old expects to be the center of attention at every play date. A 10-year-old refuses to do group projects because they only want to do what interests them. And a 14-year-old throws tantrums when plans don't revolve around their preferences. They become demanding with teachers, coaches, and authority figures. Now, these children genuinely believe that the world revolves around them because that's exactly how their home environment has always worked. They haven't learned empathy, compromise, or consideration for others. And this creates children who struggle to maintain friendships and often become isolated because other children find them difficult to be around. Now, before we move on to the third risk, I know some of you might be wondering, but what about cultural differences? Don't different cultures have different approaches to parenting? And that's an excellent point. And you're absolutely right that cultural influences affect parenting practices. Now, here's what the data shows us. A 2018 meta-analysis. Now, that's a large-scale study that combines data from multiple smaller studies to draw stronger conclusions. They examined the styles of parenting across different ethnic groups and regions. And the researchers, Pinkward and Kauser, found something fascinating. The outcomes of different parenting styles were remarkably similar across cultures, with more similarities than differences. And their conclusion was clear. They said parents across the globe could be recommended to behave authoritatively, although authoritarian and permissive parenting, the type we're talking about right now, is to some extent tolerable in a few cultural contexts. So in other words, cultural context matters, but the benefits of a balanced parenting approach appear to be universal. Now, let's talk about what happens when these children raised in permissive environments face the real world. What we find is a complete unpreparedness for real-world expectations. Here's why permissive kids often struggle dramatically when they encounter bosses, professors, or romantic partners who won't cater to their every whim. The real world has rules, expectations, and consequences that don't bend to accommodate individual preferences. So these young adults are shocked when college professors won't extend deadlines indefinitely. They struggle in jobs because they've never learned to follow instructions that they don't like. And they have difficulty maintaining relationships because they expect partners to accommodate all of their needs. They often move back home repeatedly because independent living requires skills that they've never developed. An 18-year-old gets fired from their first job for refusing to work shifts that they don't like, or a 22-year-old drops out of college because professors expect them to complete assignments even when they're not feeling up to it. So reality becomes a harsh teacher for these young adults. They've spent their entire childhood believing that their comfort and happiness should always be the priority, only to discover that the real world has expectations, rules, and that they need to contribute in a meaningful way, sometimes doing things that they don't want to do. Now, it's important to acknowledge that some children have the ability to overcome this parenting influence. And so they're going to be resilient, they're going to move past this permissive childhood, and they're going to be successful adults. However, as a parent, why would we want to rely on our child's resiliency when rather we can just set them up for success by using a more effective parenting style from the beginning? I'd rather give my children the tools that they need to thrive than hope that they're strong enough to recover from the obstacles that I accidentally created. But all of these challenges pale in comparison to the most heartbreaking risk of all. The biggest risk is that your child will eventually resent you. This is the devastating conversation that permissive parents never expect to have with their adult children. This is the cruelest irony of permissive parenting. It's that the children who you tried so hard to make happy will ultimately blame you for their struggles. Adult children realize that they were set up for failure by parents who refused to prepare them for reality. They struggle with relationships, careers, and basic life skills that their peers learned naturally. Common statements include, "You never taught me how to handle disappointment," or "I wish you would make me stick with things when I was younger, even if they got hard." Or they feel betrayed by parents who prioritize short-term happiness over long-term success. I'd love to hear from you. Were you raised by a permissive parent, or do you recognize these patterns in your own parenting? How has it affected your life and your relationship with your children? Share your experience in the comments below. Your honesty might help other parents make important changes. The most heartbreaking part of all of this is that these parents are trying to be loving and supportive, but by avoiding all of the conflict and never saying no, then they're failing to give their children the tools that they need to succeed. I've worked with adults who say that as children, my parents loved me so much that they forgot to parent me, and I wish they had cared enough to make me do some hard things. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but Dr. Lindsay, if I set boundaries and say no, my child will be unhappy or our relationship will suffer. That's actually the opposite of what happens. Children who have clear, consistent boundaries feel more secure and develop better relationships with their parents because they trust them to be the adult. The key is setting limits with love and explanation, not avoiding limits altogether. The families that I work with who make this shift tell me that their children actually become happier and more confident when they have clear expectations and boundaries to guide them. It's not too late, regardless of your child's current age. My next video will introduce you to the style of parenting that will get you there.